Hey, everybody. Thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it. My name's Matt. Hi. I'm, this is my friend Cindy here. My wife's here too. Uh, but yeah, I've been in San Luis Obispo for about 18 years now. I had a unique position, pre-COVID unique position where I was working remotely for a software company in San Francisco, Salesforce.com. And I did that for a number of years uh, back before everyone kind of started working remote. And so I've been down here for a while, but I've been really busy with my jobs at Salesforce. And so I never really had a chance to kind of lean into the world of the CIE and the small business world as well. So now I'm kind of semi-retired and I've been doing some consulting work and playing around with that. And so I'm taking advantage of the infrastructure that's here in town. And I am experimenting with some decks and some learnings from a B2B software background and trying to see if it applies to some of the things that you guys are doing here, both through the small business and through the CIE. So, and then I brought my buddy Dave along. He and I worked together at Salesforce for a long time. Um, you know, he is more of a digital marketer practitioner. Dave, you want to give us a quick introduction of some of your background? And you're on mute.
Hey everybody, my name is Dave Austin. I've worked with Matt. I worked at Salesforce for a number of years, over 10 years. But I also I've run marketing at startups. I left Salesforce to run marketing at a startup, and I've been consulting with startups. I'm also a limited partner in the Stage 2 Capital Catalyst Fund, which focuses on early stage startups. So just got a lot of marketing experience from on B2B across all segments, different kinds of ICPs, and just you name it, I've probably done it in marketing in terms of demand generation.
Um, do you mind if we just, how many people are online? Can we just go around the horn and get some of the backgrounds of the people in the room? Is that okay? Because I'd like to just, I don't know I mean, as a marketer, I'm always trying to like know who my audience is. So, we have a bunch of ideas that we're bringing to the table, but I'd love to kind of hear who's in the room. So maybe we can tailor things to your background. And I've got a secret weapon in here too, my wife she's more probably in your pocket she's a real entrepreneur who started a business down here and recently kind of sold it, but so I kind of brought her along just in case it's more of a small business angle and less of a software kind of business angle. So I got a full docket of people here to help you.
Absolutely. So as we pass this around the room, just make sure that you're passing this before you start your introduction. Just hold it, about chest level.
Thank you. Good morning. My name's Akash Shah. I moved to town back in February of this year to try to start a business around short-term rentals for property management. So I'm here to just understand about getting the sales funnel thing going. Is there anything else you would like to know?
No, that's perfect. Something short and sweet is great.
Well, I've been in San Luis since the 70s, graduated from Cal Poly, and we also are entrepreneurs, my husband and I. We've developed a landscaping business. He's a landscape contractor, sold that here in town. And we've also had storefront shops. But now, for the last 7 years, we're developing a B2B product business that we sell to particular business, a particular market all throughout the U.S. and even in Canada. So I'm looking forward to more information on CRMs and how to keep everything together and our clients and move forward.
I'm Cindy Johnson. I work with Bright Lane Gifts. We are a San Luis Obispo company. Corporate gifting is a huge space, but we do everything start to finish. So we find our customers, find out what they need, physically source the products, physically ship them to their clients and employees, and we ship all over the world and deal with customs and all the things. So we're a direct competitor, the people that just have like tech stacks and then outsource everything, but we do everything in-house here in the county.
I'm Max Hunt. I started with Bright Lane with Cindy here earlier this year. I also went to Cal Poly as well a long time ago, and I just came from the wine world most recently. So I'm trying to get a better feel for more traditional sales outlets, whereas the wine industry is definitely not a traditional way to sell stuff. So.
My name's Maria Bennetti. I have a little over 20 years of experience in the wine industry. Started my own label, family label. As Matt said, I recently sold it last year, which is no small feat. I've been started doing some consulting. I've had people reach out to me and kind of got into it. I have a couple people in the wine industry in the portfolio, but I also have some small businesses that I'm working with in town to help them out with mostly marketing.
I'm Brian Hildebrand. I'm a SLO local, born and raised. I'm recovering mechanical engineer, and I started a software-based knowledge management company, and just kind of figuring out how to build my funnel and not have gaps when I have a lot of work as a solopreneur.
Excuse me, I'm Chris, and I just retired, or kind of semi-retired, 40 years in Startupville, three startups that went IPO, a couple that were sold, and many, many failures along the way. I'm a sales guy. I've mentored probably over 100 startups with startup accelerators there that you may have heard of, YC, 500 startups, Skydeck at Cal, and moved to Paso, and I'm here to learn from you guys.
My name's Aria Olson. I'm going to be a senior at SLO High. I recently just got accepted into a pre-collegiate business program at Columbia, so I'm really just here to learn what exactly marketing entails and how crucial it is to starting a business.
And I'm the mom, Claudia Olsen, and I have a vacation rental. It's Isla Manor. It's in downtown San Luis Obispo. I have been working with the platform Airbnb, and I think I'm ready to move on into my own webpage. So. Okay. Yes.
I'm Aiden Coda, and I am the salon manager for Tiger Lily Salon downtown. And I've been there since 2020. And I am here because I'm currently, and I have been reworking the brand and trying to modernize it so that we stay kind of a dominating salon in all of the 50 salons that are in SLO. So
Yeah, that's a tough market. Okay, cool.
We do have a few intros online as
Oh,
well,
great,
not
yeah.
to
Let's do it.
exclude anyone there. We are today joined by Phil Curry of Stacks Aviation Group, 7 years of experience in B2B SaaS in the aviation sector. We have Michael Moran, who's created mouth-watering mint company for people who smoke to get rid of dry mouth. And then also Brianna Mallory. She is the marketing director for Bright Lane, a corporate gifting company located in Paso Robles, but service domestic and international customers. Eric, consulting services, tech hiring strategy, and career coaching. And he wants to monetize these services, improve the sales and marketing strategy in a very saturated market. We also have Ron, board certified music therapist, developing a private practice and providing services there. Don, who was a founder and CEO of 3 Silicon Valley companies before moving here in 1993. He is an author, and his most recent book is Solve Climate Change Now, focused on boosting awareness, action, and advocacy for a healthy climate. We also have Nick Johnson, who went to Cal Poly 20 years ago, moved back to the Central Coast a year ago, used to work in finance, now partially retired and partially working on a startup, Listwise, helping homeowners get better results when selling their homes. He's interested in learning more about marketing and how we can reach our potential customers / homeowners. And then Dawn chimed in, I'm interested in learning how to broaden and deepen engagement of businesses and community organizations in climate action. Lucy founded Noatanga, dedicated to photographers and visual artists. They've been building the software within the last year with the SBDC. Eric is chair of Slow Climate Coalition, a nonprofit. Caroline with Wellbean, they make bean-based snack bars and sell them online. And then Eric is building a program for the Slow Climate Coalition, helping homeowners electrify their homes. And last but not least, Ron Pippin with Shiny.tv, a creative branding and visual communications company aimed at helping artists and mom and pop businesses find their brand voice.
Okay. That is a diverse group of people. So Dave, we got our work cut out for us, but you know, I think the way to approach this session is that we have something to share, and then you can kind of pick what works for you, and you know, ask questions and let's have a discussion. I mean, everything I know is available. I'm gonna give you whatever I've got. I try to keep these agendas really simple so that you know kind of what to expect. And this presentation has kind of two parts. There's some preamble to just orient ourselves on the level of understanding and kind of where I'm coming from and maybe where you're coming from. But at the end of the day, marketing, Dave and I, we did this thing called the CMO Club where Salesforce acquired a community of CMOs, and the strategic initiative was to see how a community could generate great marketing content that Salesforce could then parlay and use to sell their marketing software to marketers and influencers. And Dave and I worked on that project together for about 3 years. We learned a lot about content and how, at the end of the day, I think our conclusion is that if you have great content, then all this other marketing mumbo jumbo will work a lot better, no matter what your approach is. The content is really the key. And then we want to also, we did a content session last time we were here, and we've since kind of like evolved our thinking and saying, okay, once you have great content, how do you activate it to go get those leads, right? So there's a lot of different approaches, and we're going to kind of talk about really, you know, what some of those approaches might be. But I thought I'd start with just like the most basic thing, like so that we kind of are speaking the same language. And I kind of I just made this up. But you know, this is like a basic funnel. So if you're thinking about marketing at the most generic level, this is how I would approach it. You know, I was having this conversation with a couple of entrepreneurs, very young guys, almost your age, just kind of out of college, and they're making like a, have you heard of this app called Calm? It's like, it basically is like a mindfulness app, and they're doing it for the Spanish market. So these guys are down in Mexico, and they're trying to kind of approach it. And I had this long conversation with them at lunch, and after I left the conversation, I realized they don't even know what I meant by content. They thought that content was the content of their app. And I'm like saying the word content over and over again. And I realized that I needed to kind of talk to them and say, it's content, and the way I'm speaking about it today is content about your product and market that helps people understand what you do and why it might benefit them. Okay. And so if you think about that content in that regard, there's different types of content for different parts of the buying cycle. The top is just awareness. Like, do they know you're a company? Do they know you exist? Do they know that your product exists? Like, that's kind of where you start, right? And then there's middle, and this applies more to like a B2B kind of software approach, right? Where, okay, they're interested, now they want to know more about your product. What are the features and capabilities that might benefit them to do whatever they're trying to do? And then there's the bottom, which is kind of where the sales occurs. And so a more detailed version of this in my world, where I came from in business to business software sales, then you kind of get more detailed about this funnel, right? So there's a very clear distinction between kind of what marketing does, build awareness for your brand, capture leads. Like, okay, someone raised their hand and said, I want to learn more. How do I get that information into a system where I can follow up on it? Prospect. How do I make sure that they're qualified to actually even have a conversation with? Is it worth my time? Okay, it's an MQL. It's qualified for a salesperson to go in and say, okay, we're going to spend time calling this company and saying, hey, I want to learn more about your product. And then the salesperson says, okay, this is qualified. This is actually a buying opportunity. They have budget. This is the right person to buy it, blah, 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 blah. And then it becomes an opportunity in a CRM system. And then it gets worked through a process to say, okay, we're going to actually convert this into a customer. So, you know, and a lead, a marketing funnel looks different for a B2C company. So, you know, my point here is that a marketing funnel can kind of take on different meanings depending on what kind of business you are. Like for a, yeah. Let's put this. Yes.
Will we have access to these slides?
You will have access to these slides, and they have a lot of links in them to examples so that you can kind of like see what other people are doing. But like for Tiger Lily, you know, you might just be sitting up here in this awareness bucket where you just need people to be aware that you're there and what you do, what your brand, you're more of a brand orientation. And then the lead conversion, like all this stuff basically just gets compiled into customer. They walk in the door and they get their haircut. So, you know, like that's why it's, you know, you kind of got to pick and choose things that are going to be interesting. The other thing that I wanted to kind of cover up front is I want to just acknowledge that there's a lot to this, and we're going to kind of go right into content as a way to create inbound lead flow. So content, I mean, like, so, you know, as you're thinking, as you're a start, because I've been doing this work with startups and trying to kind of retrofit my knowledge into how a startup kind of might think about this. And so there are a lot of demographic questions that you need to ask yourself as a startup, right? Like, what department am I selling to? Marketers? Am I selling to sales teams? Am I selling to funeral directors, cemetery directors? Who, you know, what area is it? What industry is it? Is it, you know, healthcare? Is it, I don't know, right? Like, so you got to kind of think about that. What's the company size? Am I trying to sell this thing to enterprises? Am I selling it to couple person development shops? Like, you know, what is the company size? And then one that comes up a lot for startups that I've been working with is what's the technology fit? Like one of the companies I was working with is a company called Update AI. They only work with Zoom. So if you're on Microsoft Teams, they can't sell to you. So there's a technographic kind of element to this. So you got to kind of think about that. That's how you develop an ICP. It's like, this is the target that I'm going after. It's, you know, Cindy, for you, it might be, you know, HR managers in tech companies that want to increase morale in their companies. Okay, that's an ICP. So then you say, okay, well, you know, you kind of want to pick one of these when you're a startup and prove it that it works. So I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Laura was talking to me about her company earlier, and she sends cards in the mail to these cemetery directors. Well, okay, you're proving outbound. So you want to pick one of these and prove it, and then you can move to other ones. And, you know, there's inbound in here. That's where we're going to spend a lot of our time, is like, how do I create interest in my product so that people are attracted to me? They come up and they raise their hand and they say, I want to learn more. That's an inbound marketing lead. There's also things like account-based marketing, which is like, I'm going to go and sell to luxury retailers. And so I'm going to know everybody in Louis Vuitton. And so I'm going to focus on, you know, there's like 100 accounts that I'm going to go get. There's PLG, which is product-led growth. That's like, I'm going to make my product viral So every time somebody uses it, they're going to refer a friend, and that's how I'm going to generate more growth for my product. Not sure that that one really applies in this group. Product-led growth. And then there's paid digital. Yeah, we got a
We just
question?
had a question online.
Yeah.
What does ICP stand for?
Oh, yeah, that's ICP is ideal customer profile. Yeah, the way I always say it is, if you had one chance to close a deal and your business depended on it, describe to me what that person looks like. That's headed towards what your ICP is. You're most likely to close. Dave, I know you want to talk about ICPs. Do you have anything to add here? I don't want to go too deep because we've got a slide for this in particular, but any other ideas here that I missed?
No, the only thing I would say is on product-led growth, it's also about creating a trialing experience with self-help and other functionality in there that can help a potential customer get up and running and and be self-reliant really before sales actually goes in there and then expands that account.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I'll circle back to that right now.
Yeah.
So this part one is about how to create great content. I think this will be applicable to all of you, because you have to kind of think about like your ICP. What are they buying from you? What does a great outcome look like? And then how do I amplify that story so that more people who are in that category find out about my product? It attracts people to you. And so when we think about this, I think about there are kind of buckets to consider, okay? One is your customers. Just always start with your customers. Your customers will tell you what to do. They are the ones that, your most loyal customer is going to tell you exactly what your marketing message should be. So start there. What are their success stories? How are they practitioners of your product? How can they help other new customers become practitioners of your product? We used to do a thing in Salesforce called hero marketing, where we would make our Salesforce admins, which was typically young women early in their career, that would administer the Salesforce instance. So it was kind of this this kind of throwaway job that a VP of sales might not want, but we would make her the hero. We literally call them heroes. And at our events, there would be signage everywhere. We'd put signs on buildings in San Francisco with these women kind of looking confident and saying, and then like a quote, "Hey, I did my Salesforce admin, my career went up," whatever like that. So, make them the center point of your marketing, and you can never go wrong. And then that leads to your ICP marketing. So, the customer is the one that is successful. Think of the ICP as the prospect that you want to bring in and become a customer. Okay? So knowledge sharing, getting them to understand the benefit of your product, and then career success is one that's kind of a little bit more specific to Salesforce, but it can be a really powerful motivator. Decision maker, again, this is more of a B2B software thing, because a lot of times you'll have a practitioner here, but she doesn't really have access to budget. You need to talk to her boss. And then that's the CMO. And then she makes the decision, but she's going to have different ideas about what, she's going to look at your company in a different light. Just more of less product focused, more problem focused, and more like, okay, well, what's the benefit of this? Like ROI, return on investment.
So is this like that person who needs to get the decision makers buy-in?
That's right.
Needs to understand what their pain points are. This is our problem, and convincing their decision maker, these people are going to solve our problem. Is that what you're
saying? It is. I'm kind of saying it more like so we know that the customer gets value out of this product. We know why. So then we take that information and we reach prospects. We say, you could get benefit from this product. Here's why. But then this person might not have the budget to make
Yeah.
a buying decision. And so then we need to engage with the decision maker to say, by the way, she wants it, and here's why it benefits you in a more kind of strategic problem solving way. So it's a different message than the other two buckets. Yeah.
Hey, Matt, if you get a
Okay.
question from the audience in the room, could you repeat the question just because the online people can't hear it that
Okay.
well?
Sorry. Here, actually, I'm going to grab this box
All right.
and we're going to use it. And
Cool.
another question from the audience.
Well, I was just thinking, analyzing all this, and to that, for prospect marketing, the person, you've shared the information, they like it, they like the product, they want it, but it's really up to the decision maker to be able to say, okay, we're going to go for it, we're going to buy that. But
That's right.
If you can, and I find if they have a good connection with their boss, have them be the one to approach them
For sure.
and give them maybe samples or whatever you have to give to them. And sometimes that can be even better if we, instead of us personally as the seller.
Of course. Yeah.
to approach them.
There's no better person to sell to a decision maker than the people who work for.
Mhm.
So that's definitely a thing. Sorry, I was going to say something. You jarred something in my mind and I lost it. But we have a slide on each of these things, and then Dave's
Yeah.
going to talk to each of them. But like the other thing, one thing that shifted I think for Dave and I, when because there's nothing. I mean, these things are. I mean, it's not like this is new thinking.
Mhm.
Where I think for Dave and I, the thing that unlocked in our last role, where we were doing this community marketing experiment, is one way to think about all these people together is as a community that services the particular area of your business. So let's just use cemeteries for an example. Like, there is a community of people who are in that world who, you want to reach, and it captures all these things together. And so if you can kind of think about the product, the addressable market of your product as a community of people sharing information, then you become less of a product salesperson and more of a member of a broader community. It's more credible, and you'll get word of mouth marketing, which is kind of what we're trying to get at here.
Yeah.
Dave, anything?
Yeah, I would like to add a couple things. So first of all, about the community stuff, what I like to do is I explain it as a community-based approach. There is a community and basically that's your marketplace. And if you take a community approach to that marketplace, you're trying to help that marketplace solve problems, get better value, provide a solution to them, all these sorts of things. And so when you go to market, you want to think about that total community. These days you're going to be on social media talking about things. You're going to have ads potentially in search. You're going to have events, all these different things. But you really want to think about, how is everything I'm doing benefiting the community? How is all of the information that we're generating in our marketing activities, and information that can be derived into content potentially, be useful to the rest of that community? Okay, that's my one point about that. It's really an approach. And my second thing is just to put an underline around customer marketing. I think that, I was talking to a startup yesterday, and a lot of people are like, oh yeah, we've got customers, it's great. But the thing I think that's important is to really understand and have a list and have your customers in your database. What's the customer? What are they happy about? What are their success stories? Are they referenceable? Because you really need them. If you're going to do events or something like that, maybe there's a customer you can turn to. You're going to need them for online reviews. There are lots and lots of different things that customers are going to do for you. And it wouldn't be a stretch to say that they are at the heart of all your marketing. Your customers are your testimony about what your product does and how great of a solution it can be for the marketplace.
Yeah, 100%, Dave. And, here are some different examples that are different kind of levels of effort that are examples. And you can click on, these are all linked to the source files, so you can kind of look at them. But on the upper left there, So Qualified is a software company that is run by one of my old bosses at Salesforce. It's a marketing play for leads. But if you want to see what kind of like customer marketing looks like in its most expensive and sophisticated form, then go check out that website and see these testimonials from CMOs and like the interview. And you can go really high end on a customer testimonial for your website. But you can also go scrappy, and this is one that I actually did for this startup Update AI. We're going to talk about events down the road a little bit. This Update AI example will be coming up throughout the presentation, but I just brought my iPhone. I brought a tripod. I bought a little kind of thing that your iPhone sticks in that is like a rig, a lavalier mic, just like this one, stuck it on them. And during the course of the event, I just grabbed customers and I said, hey, would you come over here in this corner with me for a little bit? And I'm just going to ask you some questions about how you're using Update AI. And then we really easily made a customer page on their website. And now they have these kind of testimonials here, and they can get used throughout the funnel. They can be used, this is kind of more of like a mid-funnel thing where it's like, okay, this is a customer talking about how they specifically use the product. And then this is like, this guy, he's like a practitioner. He uses the product every day to do his job. And this guy's an executive. He uses the product in a different way to extract insights that he can then take up to the CEO. And they tell different stories in their little testimonials. And so they start mapping to the buying cycle. Dave, what's this last one here, the gold mine quote?
Well, that's Klaviyo. I mean, we were using examples from people we've worked for and people we like. So this is Klaviyo. The CMO of Klaviyo is a woman named Jamie Bennetti. I used to work for her for a few years at Salesforce. Anyways, it's just a good example. They do customer marketing well. Jamie understands customer marketing very well, and she's transforming how they do marketing at Klaviyo. Klaviyo has been very successful. They just had an IPO last year, and I think that one of the things Jamie understands, like kind of like that's a common thread here that we all understand, is the customer is really the hero. You don't want to make your product your hero. You want to make your customer the hero. The hero is your customer solving challenges using your product, and make it about them, their success. And so showing that they're successful is the way to show other customers that they can be successful. And it's an approach where, your customer wants to be successful. They want to be happy. They want to be using something that's going to help them be better in their job and their career and make their life easier. So it's not the product, it's about them.
So Dave, do you want to transition that into how that relates to the prospect world, the ideal customer profile?
Yeah. So, I mean, when you think about like marketing to your ICP, there are lots of different things. So again, you really want to have be solution focused. You want to articulate what is a vision for success, right? And you can do that in lots of ways, but when you want to think about like, how is my marketing impressing upon the ICP? Well, you're impressing a vision for them, a vision for how they're going to be successful with your product. Okay. You want to have resources and content that will help them accelerate understanding, help them accelerate their return to the return on investment. So understand like how quickly are they going to realize value from your product. And then you also want to have content and resources that are going to help them like envision how they're going to implement this and get it running. Like a lot of products these days, especially technology, can be daunting to the ICP, especially when you're marketing to small businesses. And so you really want to help them understand that. Think about that top line though, about the vision for success. What is the vision for success? And then break it down. What are the different pieces that are going to be necessary for that vision to really be something that they can believe in their head? And then break down the content that you're going to need to deliver on that vision.
Here's two kind of, I like these two examples. I think that they can be relevant for different people in this audience. If I'm thinking about like Cindy's company, this promotional marketing thing, then I would say, you really want to be more benefit focused. So this is the company that I worked with for, this is again, Update AI. And I really like the way that we kind of came up with very clear benefit statements about what this product is going to do for you. Sign up, book a demo was the call to action that we were driving towards. That's like a qualified lead for them. If they do a demo call, that's like, okay, the salesperson's getting engaged. And so, you see here, there are these call to actions, but there's clear, like, this is what's going to happen if you do this thing. Okay. This side is a little bit different. This one is more about what are the capabilities inside our offering. So what do you get when you buy this thing? And so this one's a little bit more signaling to a particular buyer, but this is much more kind of product focused to educate the buyer about what the product does. And I think it's a really simplified way. This is kind of a classic Salesforce approach. Like if I did a consulting engagement for a company in the ICE, that their marketing would probably end up looking a lot like this, because this is just a tried and true formula. We called it the fan and the block at Salesforce. So the fan is the capabilities, and then the block is like the things that go throughout all of the product. So you've got AI throughout, you've got a platform, a single platform for revenue enablement, and then you've got these fanned out capabilities. So just something to think about in terms of maybe a little bit software oriented. Dave, what do you think about some examples here for decision makers? I think the point was made earlier that the best way to reach a decision maker is through the users that work for that decision maker. But there's also some tactics that you can use to try to speak directly to decision makers about your brand. What do you got on here?
So yeah, I mean, you will have ICPs, the users who will be using your product. And first of all, you want to make it so that they are like having a great experience, and then they're telling their bosses about this and saying, look, this thing that we're using here is something that I think we need as a company that we should invest in. On the other hand, though, you also want to think about like executive level decision makers. And sometimes your customer may even be just an executive, right? And I think that they are, when you look at executives and you're marketing towards them, you really want to think about like, not really the product. The executive is going to have someone who's working for them. They don't need to know the details about it. They just want to know that it works. Okay. And so, like, for example, we were working at Salesforce. We had users who were using our product, and we had a huge community of admins. But then we also have people who were making the buying decisions, and they weren't concerned about that stuff. They were concerned more about, how overall they're going to achieve success in their role as an executive. And so there was a focus then there on shared challenges among executives. It's lonely at the top. These executives wanted to talk to each other. They wanted to learn from each other. And so if you can create marketing material that helps these executives get perspectives on how other executives are solving similar challenges, it can be very helpful and very potent marketing. Focusing on their career trajectory, like they are really focused on their careers, they're executives, they want to grow. These people are, in senior positions. And so thinking about that is not a bad thing. And you don't have to really, the focus is less on your product and it's more about them and their career trajectory. So for example, we would have events with executives, and we would have, some sessions on technology, but we'd also bring in a person who was a specialist on compensation and executive compensation, and how to build a pay package and how to negotiate a pay package for at an executive level. These things were really interesting. And so it created an event agenda that was really geared around the total set of challenges and concerns that this decision maker was facing. And then finally, their personal brand. I think these days, executives have to worry about their personal brand. And when you think about the content that you create, you want to sort of bring out the executive. You want to put the spotlight on them. You want to showcase them, and you want to make them look insightful. You want to make them look smart. Matt and I sometimes, refer to it as ego marketing, but it's very potent potentially because, if these executives are seeing themselves looking, wonderfully insightful and cogent and and just really intelligent there, they're going to share that content on social media and you're going to get more reach. They're going to spread it amongst their communities. And it's just a way of building your brand and building your marketing reach. So that there's lots of different ways to do content on that. I'll go through some examples later that are tactically very simple and easy to do. And we can talk about that.
Yeah, this is an opportunity to up level your message beyond just like a product and into a bigger problem that you're trying to solve. Quick pro tip, and this again kind of veers it more into the bigger kind of tech startup world, but like, you know, with the problem level and kind of leaning into with your customers and harvesting the insights out of that those particular audiences have, you really kind of want to think like a journalist or potentially even hire a journalist type resource there. Well, Dave, you did this for the CMO club. Like you went and found an actual journalist and we paid her part-time. I mean, it was cheap, really. And the mindset that she brought into the equation to really just be naturally curious about what's happening, and to you know, kind of be curious and then write down what occurred and kind of like think about it and write about it in that perspective really works for this type of content. Dave, and then Maria can go too.
Yeah, we did that too. We actually, we were kind of at a loss with how to position ourselves. Obviously the wine industry, everybody's doing the same thing and it's really hard to differentiate yourself. And so we actually, I asked a journalist, a local journalist, wine writer, that I really liked. I liked her writing to help us create some content, because we were too kind of in our own heads and we needed somebody looking at us from the outside to help us understand what we had to offer and how we could present ourselves. And so it was really effective and it was really useful. And we got some really good content from her. And I mean, I'm still in touch with her today, but yeah, it's worth it for sure to find somebody and to do this.
Yeah, the one example here too is just looking at like the decision maker level content. For example, Matt and I were working together and we developed these amazing event agendas that were geared towards executives. And we had a full day of great content. And then I think Matt asked the question, well, how are we going to capture this stuff? Because this is great stuff. Like, how are we going to capture it and share it? And I said, well, that's a great point. And so what we did was, first of all, we recorded it. I hired a journalist who had some time on her hands and she went through and she attended the event. She took notes on it. And we created what I would call a perspectives piece because I think the most valuable thing to these decision makers was to know what other decision makers were thinking. How were other decision makers approaching the problem? And the journalists really looked into it that way. They were able to create a piece that had good quotes in it. And we had pull quotes. We blew it up and it worked really well. And I think that, you don't actually have to hire a journalist these days. I mean, nowadays, I just did one of these perspective pieces a few months ago for a client. And we recorded everything on a webinar, for example. We ran it through ChatGPT. And we said, ChatGPT, give me, the 10 most important points from this and give me 2 quotes that support each point. And then I had a person on the team there who wasn't a journalist, but she'd actually been to journalism school. So she just wrapped the whole thing up and put quotes in there. And we had a nice template created for a very, economical price in Canva and just built it right there. So again, you can do this at very low cost. And what you end up with is content, derivative content that you can share with the rest of your community. You can put it into your nurture drips on email. You can hang it on your website. You can derive even smaller snips of content like quote cards and stuff for social media. So maybe I'm going too deep on this, Matt, but
no, you're all right. We got a couple of comments in the crowd here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you were answering some of them. Where do you put that after you develop?
We're going to
it?
get to
And
that.
That's what I was wondering when you were
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that in the activate portion. We're going to specifically deal with that and how to do it.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit more information on journalist versus a copywriter versus just straight having anybody on your team write something and throwing it through Chat GPT? Like what's most effective? We don't have events.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a copywriter is someone who can write really good, concise, compelling copy, like advertising copy. I think of that as a copywriter. If they want to, do you want to make a message on your website that's well done, that's articulate, that's crisp, that's tight and bright. I think of a copywriter doing that. For this type of content, we had a lot of raw content and we wanted to tease it out like a story. Like imagine a journalist was covering this event. Maybe it was, a meeting at the United Nations, for example. How would you tease out all the important points? How would you bring out, who are the important speakers of that event? How would you bring out just the feeling of that event? And I think it's not really like, it's having a journalistic mindset is really what the most important thing is. You can have a copywriter with a journalistic mindset and they'll do probably just as good a job. You just want to think about it in that way and take sort of a journalistic approach to building that content. It's not always appropriate. I mean, if I need to write some really good ads and I want to do some really good copy for like my website, I mean, I probably don't need a journalistic mindset for doing that. I need a really good, tight copywriter. But for this type of content, I wanted a journalistic approach. Does that help you? Understand it?
Yeah, so she's asking about the Chat GPT angle. Let me offer an example here. This, don't get too hung up on the noun journalist. It's really more of an approach. And so I did this for another company here with the CIE, Land Gorilla, where I interviewed their customers and just like you can use a Otter. What's the one we use, Dave? Otter AI?
We used Otter. Yeah, I could walk through the actual process.
Otter
but
is
it's
like
Otter.ai.
amazing. It just joins the call, you do the interview, and then it transcribes the interview. And then you can just tell ChatGPT to format it however you want. Like, okay, take this interview and give it to me in a blog post or a listicle thing like Dave said. I mean, ChatGPT will do like 90% of the work for you, and then you can just go in and kind of fine tune it. I found that to be super useful. Another tool I found to be super useful is one called Notebook LM. It's made by Google. And I did a bunch of interviews with customers for this company, Land Gorilla. And then I just loaded the transcripts into this Google LM. It's basically like it behaves like ChatGPT, like an LLM, but it's just the data you load into it. So there's like 30 customer interviews in this Google LM. And then I gave it to the CEO and I said, ask it any question you want. You don't need me to tell you what to ask. You can just ask the LM any question and you have all these great customer interviews in there to get information from. So
it's like not mining the whole world.
It's not mining the whole world in the Google product. It's just doing the transcripts that you load into it. Here's another question, Dave.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in that detailed view for the sales funnel, what is the most effective place to do this?
That's a great question. So the question is, where's the most effective place to use a journalistic approach related to the sales funnel?
So here's the thing about it. So like, for example, it could be used in multiple places in the sales funnel. So let's say you're going after an executive level decision maker as part of your marketing and your go-to-market. I can create a piece of content that is a perspectives piece that really touches on a lot of interesting things at a high level. So that is really what I would call top of funnel content. It's awareness. I can have them share this content out there. And it really approaches the problem kind of at a high level. It's got detail in it, but it's more of a high level. Yeah.
Let me jump in really quick. There's Cindy's company. What is it called again? It's Brightlane. We got 3 people from Brightlane on here. Like an example there would be doing a thought piece on employee morale currently. Like employees are just dissatisfied at work. We're going to interview one of your customers, she had this problem, everybody was down. And then I used this, what we did was we wanted to help people get brighter and we brought balloons in. I don't know, there's some use case in the Bright Lane thing that says, okay, this is how we solve that problem. That would be a good example of using it in a top of funnel way, because you're really addressing a much bigger problem than like creating branded backpacks for your employees, right? Like you're addressing a bigger problem, which is like overall employee morale. Here's our approach to fix that.
But getting back to it, like it can be used in multiple different places in the funnel. I mean, because you can derive different types of content from this one piece. So if I went out and I did an event and I ran it and I created this event, like I did a webinar, say on B2B commerce in 2024. Great. I've got a wonderful perspectives paper. Okay. And so that's like high level content. Now I might get to a situation where, my sales reps are actively working with a new prospect. This is a sales qualified lead. I'm much farther down the funnel. But what can they do? They can also send them this report. I mean, even though it's sort of like higher level, it's got interesting perspectives. It helps them understand that we are in tune to the challenges that they are facing. And, it works down at that level as well. I can dice and slice it. I can take out, the customer quotes and I can put that into my customer marketing. I can put that on a form on my website. I can, put it in different places. So there's a lot of content that you can generate from one large piece of content. One of the key things to understand about marketing is that everything is derivative. Everything is. And so you should think about it that way. It's much more efficient to build your marketing content with a derivative mindset.
Yeah. Let's skip ahead, Dave, to part 2, because I think it's exactly what you're talking about. And I think everyone's ready to move into that. We'll skip the last bits of that. We can come back to it if you're interested in how this kind of ties back to community. There's a couple more tips in there. But I think it's a really good question to get to how to activate it is basically what you're asking, and where in the funnel to activate it. And so this is another example where this is kind of how we're thinking about activating, right? So there is the event that generates a bunch of content. This could be an actual physical event. It could be a webinar. It doesn't have to be an event. This is just kind of the way I thought of it, because an event's like a really interesting place where like a lot of content gets kind of created. And so you can harvest it, right? Which is what we were talking about earlier. And then you activate it on a lot of different channels. Okay. So you might not use all of these, but you can definitely use some of them. Let's say you come up with a really great piece of content about, workplace morale, and then you interview somebody about it, and then you use AI to generate a really nice article about it. Okay, now how do you get that article activated? Well, you might want to do a social piece on it, right? With a quote card, like Dave was saying. And then maybe the outcome is to generate more followers for your content. And you can use this on whatever social media outlets are really applicable to your business. Maybe it's not social for your business. Maybe it's something a little bit more concrete. Maybe it's a card that you send them in a direct mail piece, or a blog post that you're trying to build SEO, search engine optimization credibility for your search engine. Okay, we're going to talk specifically about each one of these things. And so they all have kind of different tactics. But to Dave's point that he's just making, maybe it's more mid-funnel content, like collateral that a salesperson uses when they're having a conversation with a marketer about generating pipeline. Okay, now there's like this specific kind of hard piece of useful content to help convince a decision maker that they should buy this, right? And then there's PR as well, which is more of like brand level, like, hey, can we get KSBY to do a story about Tiger Lily? I don't know, but like that would be more of like kind of broadcasting at that brand layer. So Dave, why don't we go through each of these and then we'll wrap it up and take some questions.
Okay, great.
A lot of these are kind of geared towards B2B software lessons, so they might not be super applicable, but I'm going to try to kind of go through them and see. Yeah, yeah. Kind of audience participation. We're going to throw it this time.
Yeah, I think that, can you go back to that?
Oh, yeah,
I think that slide is definitely more like B2B focused, and
for sure.
I tend to think more in the B2C. So if you're thinking about directly reaching your customer, instead of an event, you think of it as like a marketing campaign that you've decided to focus on. And then you
Yeah.
take that campaign, you take that one element that you want to focus on in your business, whether you've got a faster search for property listings, or you've got the best listings in Cayucas or whatever, or you've got a particular piece of marketing material that you want to get out there, then you take that and you use it across all of these platforms to generate kind of that buzz, and you can create kind of like a whole package around it. And then that's kind of how all of these things come together if you're trying to reach a customer. That's how I think.
I think that's the right idea.
Yeah, you have to come. Yeah, you
talk Tiger Lily about like why we're the best.
Yeah, like
specific message, and then we're gonna.
we do the best. I don't know, balayage, if they are still doing that. I don't even know. But yeah, like that is going to be your campaign. Like, hey, we're going to focus on that right now. And then you create a whole kind of platform around it. Interview customers. You create a blog post about why it's so cool and hot and how we're the best at it. And, that kind of thing. And you take it all and you just create this giant like marketing package that all fits together. So you're not kind of just throwing out all these different messages all the time. It really just creates a cohesive kind of plan.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I mean, it comes down to, there's a positioning and messaging exercise, right? So let's just take Tiger Lily off the top. Like, you have a positioning idea in your head. Like Tiger Lily is where the coolest people get their haircut. Yeah. Okay. And then you interview several really cool looking customers with really great haircuts. And then you create clips of that content that you post on social media. But to Maria's point, you do it all as part of one unified campaign, right? So in the month of, we skipped over the marketing calendar slide, but in the month of March, you're going to do cool customer profiles. And then when you do an ad spot at KSBY, it features those super cool customers, and your TikTok has those customers, and your Instagram has those customers, and your storefront has them sitting in the windows. And so like everything is like, oh, okay, Tiger Lily cuts the hair of the coolest people in San Luis Obispo. And then that stays consistent. And so you're activating that message across all the channels that you choose to activate it on. Yeah. Dave, any comments on that? Or are we good? Want to go through these individually and do a quick run through?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think no one's wrong here. All these are great examples. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is we're throwing a lot of stuff against the wall for you guys. Like these are things that work for us and the way we approached it in our business, which is like totally different than what you're doing, but hopefully you pull something out of this. Really quick on PR, again, this is really more at the big company level, but that point about positioning versus messaging, right? So positioning is where you sit inside a market and what your differentiators are. So for Maria's winery, it was, being really close to the coast, and having these really unique varietals that are coastal kind of French style varietals. That was the product and the differentiation, and the place is really beautiful. Okay. But then the messaging is how you describe that. What metaphors do you use? What words do you use? It's really important in the wine business to use the right words, but you're always working those words around your differentiated position. So she's going to talk about coastal influences. She's going to talk about the ocean. She's going to talk about the cool breeze that comes in the evening. all that messaging is always going back to your positioning statements. So that you have to kind of figure out like, what is my positioning, where I sit in the market, and then what is my messaging? How do I describe that to customers? Okay, that's really important to kind of get your head around, because if you don't have good positioning, you can't have good messaging. But if you don't have good messaging, then your positioning is just kind of like blah. So you got to have both. Narrative, metaphors, testimony. Testimony is a good one because that goes back to the customers. Like, how am I credible in my claim? The coolest people in SLO get their haircut at Tiger Lily. Well, if I don't have some cool looking people with great haircuts, then I don't really have testimony that supports my messaging, which supports my positioning. So it all ties together.
I wouldn't use Mark Benioff for your haircutting company either.
No, that
But yeah.
guy has got
Yeah.
terrible hygiene habits. Okay, this is one that I think everybody always wants to get to, which is like, how do I spend money on paid search? And Dave is an expert on paid search. Dave, do you want to give us a couple comments on your attitude towards paid search these days?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, look, it's gonna vary, dramatically, right? Like, depends. If you're doing a B2C product like a haircut, or whatever, or getting your hair styled. I mean, I know Tiger Lily, for example, if we're using the example, wants to differentiate themselves, right? But your searcher may think of it as a commodity too, right? So there are different approaches to looking at how you do that. But I think that, I was telling a startup the other day, I said, look, whatever you're doing out there in market, if you're at events or if you're, publishing content on social media, whatever it may be, your target marketplace or ICP is going to go to search usually to help understand, what are the options, what are the competitors, what do you guys look like? And my advice to them was you need to be there in search. As soon as you start creating inbound interest, they're going to go to search to validate that you're the right person. And so there are a lot of things you can think about with search content, right? First of all, is purpose-built organic content. This is content that you want to show up in the search results for a given query. Okay, so if it's hairstyling in San Luis Obispo, you want to create content that would rank highly in that query result on Google, for example. There's also earned media. So this is media like about your shop or your product that would be in another publication, for example, or on any other site. And so this is speaking about you, and you want to think about like, what is that earned media? What is that content? I think you can also put under, maybe not under earned media, but review sites. There are like, and especially in the business world, there are lots of directory and review sites where people will go in and review your product. So these are sites that you don't control, but you want to make sure that you have a good presence there because people are going to search and find you and learn about your reputation and make a decision potentially about whether to talk to you based on what's on those sites. And then there are finally ads. So you can buy ads on Google that will show up on these different queries. I would just say a couple of things about that. If you're not, showing up sort of in search results can be a long, hard battle. It's very competitive, but you can always buy ads to sort of overcome that, at least in the short term. And so think about how you're doing that. I would actually hire a professional to do it because it's very tricky to do it without losing a lot of money. Google doesn't make it easy. And so I would just hire someone, locally who can help you with your paid search stuff. But again, you're building brand and you're reinforcing everything that you're doing in marketing on search because people are going to go there. Okay. It's a big channel for everyone who's researching, considering using your product.
Yeah, the one thing on this is good content is always going to win, right? So if the content, the algorithm can shift, but at the end of the day, if the content is valuable and people read it and use it, then it's going to rank higher. So you can, with great content, kind of trick the game here a little bit, where maybe a big player is spending a ton of cash and can feel like you're throwing money into a giant hole, but a piece of great content can kind of get you ranking with the big boys. Dave, before you go, can you just share that one story where that small startup was ranking on a big search term? Remember that we were talking about that the other day? What company
Cash
was
flow.
that?
It was called Cash Flow.
Yeah.
So I was working with, I was doing an analysis on search, a competitive analysis for a client of mine just recently, just a few weeks ago. And I noticed that one of their competitors was ranking very highly on a very, very, very competitive query. For this, it's called, the category is called CPQ. It's called Configure Price Quote. It's a big category for
Salesforce
anyone
is
who's
in
looking to
that
create
category.
quotes
I mean,
for, yeah.
companies
Salesforce is in it, Conga.
are buying digital ads and
Yeah.
that. So you
Yeah.
normally, as a small company, you wouldn't even
Yeah.
try, but this
Right.
company did it, right?
They did it, and the way they did it, I mean, you know, my takeaway from this is in the old days, you know, it was about building links towards your website. It was gaming the system. It was called search engine optimization, literally gaming it. But these days, it's much less about that. Google is looking at the content and the value of the content, and they have ways to measure that. They can look at the page, they can measure how long people stay on your page. They can see when they bounce back into search. They can see if they're doing subsequent searches. They're trying to understand, is the content that you're providing satisfying what they are looking for on that search query? That's what Google is trying to understand. And if your content does that, they will reward you. They want to show that relevant content. They will push it up. So it makes them happy, and it'll also help you get better position on the result, and you'll get more traffic that way.
Incidentally,
so
this is also interestingly how TikTok works. Whereas if you look at like Instagram, the game was gathering as many followers as you possibly can and essentially creating your own private audience for your content. TikTok actually works more like this, where each video that gets launched on TikTok has an equal shot at going viral. So every time you upload a piece of content, the TikTok algorithm is analyzing how users are interacting with it. Do they swipe back to it? Do they watch the whole thing? Do they follow you? Do they like it? There's a bunch of actions that the user takes that TikTok then says, oh, this is actually a piece of content that someone's interested in. So then every piece of content on TikTok gets like 1,000, gets broadcasted into 1,000 feeds. And then they look at the analysis of how it was interacted with. And if it reaches a certain threshold, then they say, okay, let's expose this to 10,000 users, and then 100,000, and then 1 million. So if you generate one small piece of content can reach 1 million users on TikTok. And the search algorithm in Google is starting to work that way too. It's all about how valuable the content is to keep, because you think about what's the incentive for TikTok or Google? It's to keep you coming back to their platform and spending time on their platform. So the more valuable whatever they're offering you on that platform is going to keep you there longer. So they're actually incentivized to deliver the content that you actually want to see. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Cindy. You had a question?
I think you kind of answered it, but I was going to say, how would you weight those three things up there? And I think you answered it, that the organic content wins. If we're
organic content always wins.
If we're small businesses, we're not going to play in the paid content with any real success.
It depends. You know, there's one thing that's interesting about search right now because of AI. There are what I would refer to as kind of long tail searches. So they're like these highly specific searches that kind of like get it down into some really niche-y type spot. And you can win in that particular area. But if you're trying to search on something like CRM, I mean, you've experienced this. It's a sea of craziness. Okay, let's keep moving.
Hey, but real quick though, just on that,
Yeah.
I would say that earned media is real. Third-party sites are really important.
That's
Review
true.
sites are super, super important in B2B. Like they are just, it is table stakes to
There's
really
G2
focus on that.
crowd, but there's also
Yeah.
like Maria has some experience with this from
There's
I think the one
Capterra.
thing-
There's
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
review sites is the one thing that the feedback that we've gotten and the thing that we've seen the most is you need to interact with every single post, every single, even if positive or
Yeah.
negative, you have to
Yeah.
have somebody on your staff who is constantly, especially with Google reviews,
Yeah.
you need to have them just say thanks or whatever. I mean, you
Yeah.
have to have them respond, and
Yeah.
that really generates a lot of energy around it. So you really have to
Right.
pay attention to those reviews.
Right.
on
That's the
all
whole
of the
game
sites.
on LinkedIn is the same way.
Yeah.
Like if you post something on LinkedIn and you're trying to reach business users, how many comments and the interaction of the comments is the game so each platform's a little bit different in how they approach it, but again, your results may vary. Okay, can we move to the next thing?
We did have one quick question
Oh, we do.
online.
Okay, let's hear it.
In terms of B2B marketing, thoughts on publishing our blog posts on Medium to help expand our reach?
Dave, what do you think about Medium? Do you know anything about it?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, a lot of people post on Medium.
I feel like Medium's kind of the new, what was that old blogger? Oh, it was called Blogger.
Yeah.
It's kind of Medium's like, if you're trying to generate an audience for your content, then Medium is the right approach. If you're trying to
Right.
supplement your content that's on your website, then a blog is the right approach. Does that sound
Well,
at least good enough to be bullshit?
it's another channel. I mean, think of media as like a social media platform. That's the way I would think about it.
Yeah.
And then thoughts on Substack too.
Same thing. I would think about it as another platform. It's another, it's a social media platform. That's what they're trying to build it into. I think it's a little bit of a different type of content. It's more long form.
Yeah.
So if you want to have a newsletter on there, but again, you'll have to experiment with it. But lots of people are doing like newsletter type of stuff on Substack. I mean, that's what I subscribe to on some of that.
It's really good for long tail content. Like
Yeah.
if you are reporting on the Minnesota Timberwolves and you're a basketball junkie, like, I think you can create an audience for yourself on those platforms, and you can sustain a living just reporting on that particular niche piece of content. You'd be an expert on that. All right, let's wrap it up. We did events kind of already. Like the point here is, if you're going to do an event, harvest the content and then broadcast across all your different marketing channels. And we talked about this as well, right? Like this is your down funnel content. If you're going to use something you can use it at the top of the funnel, but you can also use it mid funnel. This can really keep a conversation going for a salesperson after that you flip the lead to them and you're in this kind of opportunity and converting them to a customer. Some of this content shows back up in those later funnel steps. More of a B2B orientation here. And then we just talked about socials. So we kind of covered this as well. Like, there's a lot of room for experimentation here on social. And the comment I would make about social that we really unlocked in doing the CMO Club, Dave and I, was social is a great way to reach audiences that you're not directly connected with. So this might apply to Tiger Lily, right? Like, yeah, Tiger Lily's cool and you're a brand, you're not a person. And you might even have like a cool social media following. But what if Kim Kardashian tweeted about Tiger Lily, right? Like she got her haircut at Tiger Lily. Now, if she's broadcasting on her channels about your brand, now all of a sudden, you got appointments booked out for the next 6 months. So the really interesting thing about social is you can reach new audiences through influential people that are in your community. So, that's the pathway to kind of breaking through into a new audience, is by leveraging the social of the people that are kind of in your community. Dave, any parting thoughts on social? And then we'll open it up to questions and we'll wrap it.
I just think it's very important. I think ego marketing is a very, very important thing. People will repost things that make themselves look good. I don't mean to be so crass, but that's the fact. So
No, it's so true. I mean, I
Yeah.
think I'm going back to this Tiger Lily thing, but like, you know, if you got the 10 most, you could, there's a world where you could track your customers, you could track their social media reach, and then you could target them with a offer. Maria did this with the winery too, right? Like target them with an offer for, special half off a haircut or hairstyling, if you are willing to do this exit interview, and post it on your social media. That's a huge win. That's worth half of your cost of that haircut to get that free word of mouth advertising for that influential person. And Maria used to do this with the wine club signups. Like, really we said, hey, we'll comp your tasting if you sign up for the club, or some kind of incentive that says, post this on social media, you and your husband having a real wonderful time at our
Right.
winery, and we'll incentivize that in some way. That's the kind of word of mouth marketing that social can really unlock.
Right. Or the ego marketing of it, just enjoying like the scenery and the whatever,
Right.
and
Flexing
feature
on
people up
this
there.
spot that we found.
Yeah.
Yeah. One more question
Right.
here, and then we'll just kind of wrap it.
No, I'm just, when he says
Ego.
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 Like
Ego.
Evelyn is like a really influential marketing person. And so she is really well known in the CMO community. So when we got her to come to our event, we sat her down in our little studio and we had her opine on, what was this one? Recruiting. And so then she opines on recruiting, and then we share it on the CMO Club's social media feed. But then we tag her, right? Didn't we? Oh, we tagged a bunch of people. They were all in this video. And I guarantee Evelyn reposted it on her feed. So now all of a sudden our brand is reaching all the people that she is influential over, which is a lot more people than necessarily our brand. Or even if it's not a lot more people, it's just different people that are finding out about what we're doing. Okay. That's it.